Tonight, Canada imposes more restrictions and quarantine requirements for travelers amid emergence of the Omicron variant.
They will then need to isolate themselves until they get the result of their test.
The government once again requiring air travelers returning to Canada to quarantine while adding more countries to its travel ban list. Plus,
you walk outside and nothing's the same.
Ontario reaches a grim statistic. 10,000 people in the province have now died from COVID-19. We speak to families still grappling with their devastating loss. And
70 artists have studio space in this distillery district building. Now they're being evicted 5 months early. I'm Jessica Ng, and I'll have that story for you coming up.
Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. New rules are in effect for people traveling by plane or train. They come as health officials closely monitor the Omicron variant. Now, concerns over the new strain prompting the federal government to impose more travel bans tonight and the return of quarantines for many Canadian travelers. Greg Ross has the latest.
7 cases of the Omicron variant have now been confirmed in Canada. 4 in Ontario, 1 in Quebec, 1 in Alberta, and 1 in BC.
Obviously, we're watching very, very closely the situation with Omicron.
Today, the federal government extended travel restrictions to incoming travelers from 3 more countries. Nigeria, Malawi, and Egypt will join 7 other African countries that the government moved to restrict travelers from on Friday. And that was not all.
That all air travelers coming from outside Canada, apart from the United States, will now need to be tested at the airport in which they are landing in Canada, whether they are vaccinated or unvaccinated. They will then need to isolate themselves until they get the result of their test.
Meanwhile, new rules went into effect today for those looking to travel within Canada. Unvaccinated travelers over the age of 12 can no longer board a plane or train, and a negative COVID-19 test will no longer be accepted as a substitute for most people.
I'm good with that.
Travelers we spoke to today at Pearson Airport didn't seem to mind the new rules, but some were concerned about possible delays now that both Air Canada and WestJet have confirmed they're checking vaccination status for all passengers. Did you get here a little earlier, just in case?
Yes, 3 hours before my flight.
With all of the uncertainty surrounding the Omicron variant, it's possible that those traveling outside of the country today could be faced with a new set of rules by the time they return.
I want to ask all Canadians to remain cautious and prudent. And if they're thinking about traveling, to recognize that travel measures could change at any moment.
There's another change that's going into effect today, and this is one that people living in border cities have been waiting for. A negative PCR test is no longer required to return to Canada for vaccinated travelers who have been out of the country for less than 72 hours. Those PCR tests can be costly, upwards of $100. So this means day trips to the United States are going to be much easier for Canadians. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
as the country continues its fight against COVID-19 and the new variant in the province today, a number was hit that pre-pandemic was unthinkable. 10,000 people in Ontario have now died from COVID-19. Natalie Collada brings us some of the faces and families behind the numbers.
You know, you walk outside and nothing's the same. Sorry. Everything's changed.
Michelle Barmash and her family are slowly trying to piece their life back together.
It has changed the foundation of our family. It has ripped our father out of the picture.
In February, Michelle, her husband Howard, their daughter and grandchildren contracted COVID-19. Michelle and Howard were admitted to the ICU. Howard never came home.
I was there for 4.5 weeks, during which time my husband died. I wanted to join him.
The family's story is one felt by many in Ontario. 10,000 people in this province have now died after contracting COVID-19.
Yes, it's almost like waking up to a nightmare. every day.
Gary Clark's parents died 13 days apart. They caught COVID in April 2020 in their long-term care home.
Not being able to say goodbye to them, or proper goodbye to them, has really left us as a family in a, vulnerable state.
The medical community has learned a lot since the pandemic began. Treatment for mild cases has evolved, but with severe cases, people are still dying.
We've been for 2 years around treating this disease that didn't exist 2 years, and we're still seeing patients die every week. The message is still the same as it was, because prevention is better than the treatment of this virus.
The call for our support.
Bereaved Families of Ontario's Toronto chapter says they've seen a 40% increase in calls for their peer support program.
For me, there's no closure. I mean, that's a term that I think is unrealistic for people. My son died almost 24 years ago, and I grieve him every day.
Both families are doing what they can to honor their loved ones and continue.
I try and do things that remind myself of them. I play their favorite music. I eat some of the foods that they would like. I go to the cemetery once a week.
I go through different emotions every day. It's like I don't know what's going to be with the rest of my life.
Natalie Collada, CBC News, Toronto.
We're tracking another death toll tonight, this one among deaths not related to COVID-19. The Canadian Medical Association says delayed or missed healthcare services due to the pandemic may have contributed to more than 4,000 deaths. Data shows there was a 70% jump in opioid-related deaths, and more than half of Canadians living with chronic diseases say they had difficulty accessing care last year. London police are investigating after a multi-vehicle collision left at least 8 people injured, including pedestrians.
This is not a hit and run. Everybody has remained on scene. What we can say is that multiple pedestrians have been transported to hospital with injuries ranging from life-threatening to minor in nature.
The accident happened in the city's west end between Wonderland Road and Riverside Drive just before 7 tonight. The ages of those injured aren't known yet. Roads in the area will remain closed into the morning. No charges have been laid at the moment. 205 Toronto police employees are now on unpaid leave. They are workers who are either not fully vaccinated or won't disclose their vaccination status. As Lorena Redicott reports, the TPS is taking a tougher stance than neighboring police services.
Of the 205 members now on unpaid leave, Toronto police say 117 are uniform officers, 88 civilian. In a statement, Chief James Raymer said, "Our objective remains ensuring the health and safety of our members, our workplaces, and the public we serve." It adds up to 2.7% of the total workforce. Raymer said, as we do every day, the service is prioritizing frontline and priority response to ensure public safety is not impacted.
It's unusual. The police service hardly ever gets very, very tough with what their people do. But I think this is entirely appropriate. I like the fact that they're saying we're going to suspend you without pay.
John Sewell with the Toronto Police Accountability Coalition doesn't expect this to affect police response.
Most of the calls that police receive have nothing to do with violence and very little to do with crime. So, in fact, reducing those calls is not going to be significant.
The head of the police union, the Toronto Police Association, says he's disappointed and continues to advocate for alternative compliance options, including testing. Other GTA police forces aren't taking as hard a line as Toronto, allowing the option for rapid tests for unvaccinated cops. Peel Police say their vaccination rate is 88%. Those who are not vaccinated or won't disclose have to take an education course. For Durham Police, the rapid testing requirement takes effect January 7th. The force says 81% of its members have both shots. 195 have not disclosed their status. York Regional Police say any members who refuse to give their vaccine status or be tested will be sent home, and it'll be unpaid.
It's a little bit frustrating that the approach is different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. I think it would have been more helpful had there been more consistency.
His national union prefers the option for rapid testing, but doesn't plan legal action, especially since courts have ruled in favor of vaccine mandates. Any Toronto officers now on leave can go back to work once they're vaccinated. Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Toronto.
Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, other than a bit of light snow early this morning, things were pretty stable with temperatures just a little below seasonal.
Thanks, Kelda. You know, at this time of year, a seasonal daytime high is about 4 degrees, and we were half that, too. But we are going to be getting into a situation where we'll see not so much tomorrow, I mean a little bit tomorrow, baby steps, some warmer air coming our way. It's really going to be just kind of Thursday, and then the door is going to shut on that. But just know that that's coming. We will have that milder day. After some light snow earlier this morning, then with those stronger winds, a little bit of lake effect, so a few wet flurries, still that potential, although that will ease up overnight tonight in terms of seeing the lake effect. Tomorrow morning, a little bit of sunshine coming through with the cloud cover, so kind of variable skies. That'll probably be the nicest part of the day in terms of the sky conditions, because then the clouds, those will be increasing as we get into the afternoon hours and becoming mostly overcast. We do have some rain showers that will come in, but that's going to be much later Wednesday and really into Thursday morning. So tonight, -1, and then for tomorrow afternoon, there. How about seasonal for that daytime high at 4 degrees?
Thanks so much, Colette. 70 local artists are being evicted from their Distillery District studios, forced to make moving plans during the busiest time of the year. It all comes down to changes to the building lease, which was set to expire in August next year. But this week, tenants were told the date is being moved up by 5 months. Our Jessica Ng brings us this exclusive story.
I knew as soon as I got into this building, I was like, this is home. Now looking for new space, I go back to that. It's so hard to find, right?
Vanessa McKernan gets nostalgic, thinking about the 7 years she's been at the Case Goods warehouse in the Distillery District. After 20 years as an arts landmark in the city, this will be the last holiday for 70 artists who rent space here.
We were waiting for information on what, if there was going to be an early lease termination, what that termination date would be. But it was always sort of phrased with this idea that they were still in negotiations.
McKernan says tenants knew the building's head lease was up in August, but just this week, tenants were told they needed to be out well before then.
And I think it's been disappointing because I expect this from a commercial landlord, but I always expected more from Artscape.
Artscape is the nonprofit that co-manages the building. Staff tell CBC News between early artist departures and the desire of the property owner dream to turn the building into an educational institute, the end date was renegotiated and moved up to March.
In terms of the magnitude of the entire 20-year lease, it's also something that people that we're hoping people can plan for.
Artscape CEO says they've been helping remaining tenants find new studio space. Only half are still in the building.
They pressured most of the artists away by being non-communicative.
Metalwork artist Hoyan Tang says there are discrepancies in the communication from Artscape over the last 5 months.
They're telling us that they've negotiated with their landlords for a deal that financially benefits those two parties. But I also have a landlord, and they also have a tenant.
Councillor Brad Bradford says all levels of government need to get creative to sustain artistic spaces in the city.
We are working hard to secure more space because that's what makes Toronto so exciting and so vibrant.
He suggests updating zoning regulations so artists can live and work in the same space. Jewelry designer Jenny Greco is one of many tenants considering legal action.
The comments of trying to support the arts, it's not the reality. We're not being supported the same way other small businesses are supported.
Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, this was my dream house. We worked really hard for this place.
This is wrong and it has to be stopped.
A Kitchener woman says a Toronto company duped her out of the only home she and her late husband ever owned. Now she's fighting to stay. We'll bring you Catherine Coombs' story next. Welcome back. A woman is suing a Toronto company in hopes of getting ownership of her house back. She's still living in it now, but is fighting to stay. The widow says her dying husband was duped into selling the home earlier this year for well below market value. Angelina King has the exclusive story.
This was my dream house. We worked really hard for this place.
But now Catherine Coombs is fighting to keep it, the only home she and her late husband Mark ever owned, one filled with reminders of him and memories of their family.
My grandchildren were raised in here, my great-grandchildren were raised in here, lots of beautiful Christmases, Thanksgivings. So this was my life here.
Catherine is now suing to keep the home after a privately owned company called Municipal City Housing bought it from Mark in January, less than 2 months before he died of cancer. Coombs says her husband thought the money would help take care of her after he was gone.
They said that he wanted me to be debt-free, didn't want me to worry about anything.
Hi, Kath. The couple's friend Dee Hughes helped Catherine file a lawsuit after she read the sale contract.
There was red flags all over it.
The lawsuit claims the couple was tricked. It says Municipal City Housing and Exit It Contract Consulting and 2 company directors preyed on the couple and duped them into selling their house for under market value by telling them they'd be able to keep living there for the rest of their lives for free. But that wasn't in the paperwork.
This is wrong and it has to be stopped. And so I'm going to bat for her and Mark's memories.
Mark agreed to sell their house for $191,000. Records show a few months later, a similar home on the same street sold for $535,000. The lawsuit also claims the defendants took advantage of Mark's diminished capacity in the late stage of his cancer and Catherine's lack of involvement in the finances of her home.
Because at that time it was in his brain, so yeah, and he wasn't in good shape then.
The lawsuit has not been tested in court. Exit It and Municipal City Housing have not filed statements of defense and declined requests for comment.
So this is the exit contract then?
The lawsuit says it all started with a call from Exit It, a company that claimed it could help the couple get out of their door-to-door HVAC rental contracts. A representative came to the house and spoke with Mark. Soon after, he visited again, this time with a man from Municipal City Housing. That's when Mark signed with Exit It to get help with the HVAC contracts and with Municipal City Housing to sell the house. The man from Exit It is also a director of Municipal City Housing.
All I want is to have my house back. I haven't really mourned over my husband yet. And to have these guys stopped, because there's other people out there that are going to get stung like I did.
Property records show Municipal City Housing owns 4 other houses in Southern Ontario that had HVAC equipment liens on title under the previous owners. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
You're looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline, partly cloudy tonight with a few snow rain showers, currently 1 degree in the city. Let's go back to Colette now with a look at your extended forecast. And Colette, some milder temperatures are headed our way.
Thanks, Kelda. A few things to talk about in terms of the next couple of days with some fluctuations. Going to be seeing a bit of a warm-up that's going to come our way into Thursday. A little bit of sun tomorrow morning before the clouds roll in, so enjoy some of that coming through. And then the question mark here, when I have a Sunday into Monday, it looks like we are going to see a system that's going to move through, and that's kind of the general timing. But the models really aren't in agreement here as to whether it's going to push further north and we get into the warm sector and it's a rain event, or it lingers a little further south and we get into a snow event. Right now it's looking like we'll be on the milder side, not necessarily warm, but milder side, but I'll keep watching that for you. So after some wet flurries through these early overnight hours, then we see some of those sunny breaks tomorrow coming through with the clouds. So a little bit variable to begin the day, all the way back into southwestern Ontario. So a little bit breezy and getting a bit gusty as we head towards the lunch hour. And clouds will be increasing as well. And this is all ahead of a system that's going to be moving in now. It'll bring some more significant snow, like 5 to 10 centimeters into northeastern Ontario, but we're seeing the warmer side of things going to take away any of that snow that's left from the weekend or early this morning, and we get into some showers. So overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning, those linger, and then we'll break out of it, and still a bit of lake effect, but in the liquid form of rainfall into those afternoon hours. However, once that cold air filters down, there will be some lake effect snow setting up as the temperatures drop after Thursday. So be aware, it really is just that one day where we're going to see those temperatures at nearly twice where we should be at this time of year. Wind chill tonight, -5, a bit of patchy fog for the Windsor area and a slight chance of getting into some wet flurries through there. And tomorrow, 5 to 6 degrees, a little cooler though, London, your high at 3. Overnight lows all around the Golden Horseshoe. Again, we'll see some of these streamers kind of backing off as we head towards the morning, and then those increasing clouds into the afternoon. But 4 degrees for Toronto, and we get to double that into Thursday with that 8 degrees before we start to see the cold air come right back at us, Gelda.
Thanks so much, Colette. Share company Uber wants the City of Toronto to continue issuing licenses to its drivers without a driver training program in place. A council voted earlier this month to put licenses on hold until a program is established, but drivers say they're now paying the price.
I pick up passengers from Markham and I drop off the passengers like in the downtown. Then I cannot pick up passengers in downtown. I have to go to north, like Brampton, Vaughan City, like that.
The driver training accreditation program is 2 years behind schedule due to COVID-19. City staff today recommitted to implementing a training program and will decide on one by mid-January. And as we go to break, we're getting a first look at Via Rail's new fleet that will serve the Quebec City to Windsor corridor. Each train has automatic touchless interior doors, ergonomic seats, and high-speed data connection. Toronto is one of 7 stops along the route. We'll be right back. Finally tonight, Mayor John Tory joined Toronto Argonauts manager Pinball Clemens at City Hall today to raise a flag for the team ahead of their game in the East Division Final this weekend.
All that stands in the way of being in the Grey Cup game is this Sunday's game against Hamilton. And so we can help to make that a done deal by making sure we cheer them on, making sure we show our support by wearing some blue.
The team this year has had an incredible comeback season, and now that we've had that, we're like one game away from the Grey Cup.
The Argos will have home field advantage in their showdown against the Ticats for a chance in the Grey Cup game on December 12th. And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast at 6 tomorrow, and I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.